Let's be honest. Life's hard sometimes. We get discouraged, struggle in our faith, and it's easy to feel alone. Despite how you might feel sometimes, know that God's got your back. And so do we. Vision's prayer line team are ready to pray for whatever you're going through. Text your prayer request to 0401 132 888 and we will be praying for you. Or click prayerline at vision.org.au. That's 0401 132 888 or vision.org.au. It's another way Vision is helping you look to God daily. A biblical perspective on life, culture and current events. This is 2020 on Vision.
Let's turn our attention to the state of literacy in our school students. The Australian Christian Lobby is drawing attention to literacy in younger generations, and right now it appears that Victorian school children are struggling and are years behind in literacy, forcing parents to spend thousands of dollars in tutoring to intervene. All this despite the government boasting about recent NAPLAN results, claiming that Victoria is the second smartest state in the country. Well, Jasmine Yuen is the Australian Christian Lobby Victorian State Director, and they've got a campaign going to arouse parents to the fact that things are not quite as they seem. Jasmine, a special welcome along to 2020.
Thank you, Neil. Thank you for having me here again.
Jasmine, is there some form of deception, you think, going on in Victoria around education right now?
Yes, definitely it is. For many years, Victoria has been said is the state of education or the education state. But the academic performance of our school students is really alarming. Recently, the Herald Sun has revealed that Victoria has been ranked the second smartest state based on the NAPLAN result that we have last year. So quite a few numbers of primary and secondary schools have been ranked top 100. And of course, New South Wales is doing better than us. But at the same time, if you look at average, our academic performance is going downhill, not only in the recently past few years, but for over 20 years. Just point out some of the figure. For example, in 2022, NAPLAN result, Victorian students have the biggest drop in NAPLAN. What they say is that the states have recorded substantial decreases in the NAPLAN result as compared to other states, which means we are not doing good compared to other states, especially in Year 9 numeracy and grammar and Year 9 spelling as well. So that is concerning. Definitely, we are not doing good as the Herald Sun report say.
Interesting to say the way they frame it compared to other states. Is it a fair thing to ask, do we know if Victoria is doing a lot worse than other states and territories, or is literacy in Australia struggling across the board? Any thoughts from you here?
I would say in average, I think Victoria is going downhill. They blame it on the long COVID lockdowns. So nationwide, Victoria has the longest lockdown. So school children have been doing school remotely during the 2021 and 2022 schooling. But I would say if you trace it back to the NAPLAN results way before COVID, Victorian students are not doing really good either. Let's say 2017 NAPLAN result. Herald Sun again reported that more than 1,000 grade 3 students scored 0 in spelling, and hundreds of grade 5 students answered less than a quarter of maths questions correctly. So this is alarming. Even the international standards, based on the 2023, this report called the Progress in International Reading Literacy Studies, it is shown that Victorian students in Year 4 are declining in their reading ability. So that is concerning.
Well, we might be thinking of reports around Victoria struggling to have enough police and struggling around issues of school teachers. Is there something deeper that you're identifying in the Australian Christian lobby around school culture? Is there something different about Victorian school culture that you can identify?
Yes, definitely. In Victoria, our school has respectful relationship as well as sexuality education. So these two programs, I would say, radical. Respectful relationship to start with. This program is actually promoted as teaching students to be respectful. It started off because there is a rise in domestic violence. So the government said, let's teach school children to be respectful in all relationship. But at the end, we see that that is not the case. Just over the weekend, we see a few teenagers has gang up against a 14-year-old girl with autism and punch her on the head for more than 40 times. How is this respectful to another girl? And so I would say in the past few years, despite all this respectful relationship, the behavior of students are just aggressive and is disrespectful and is alarming. Not only, sometimes threatening students, but also teachers as well.
When we think of those radical education programs, some might be concerned that when you've got a school culture that moves ideologically, along with perhaps where the government might be going, with the promotion of some levels of political activism, that might make a difference to the outcomes of education. I mean, do you think people are considering whether that's the case?
There are many parents are actually raising their concern about this kind of political activism. Back in 2021, there are actually two schools that has been revealed that there are some teacher or some other personnel coming from other organization asking male student, white and Christian, to apologize for the sexist kind of sin that their ancestors have committed, but not themselves. And at the same time, recently, during this Hamas and Israel conflict, we see that teachers are actually wanting to encourage students to go into the pro-Palestinian protest during school hours, and also climate change protests as well. So all this kind of identity politics and political activism is quite rampant in Victorian state schools.
So if you're challenged with issues around literacy, when you've got what you might even term an indoctrination, and as you say, there's all sorts of allowances for students attending climate change rallies and pro-Palestine protests, indoctrination in itself sounds to me like a replacement of the genuine school teaching priorities. Is this, do you think perhaps even a catalyst for some of the issues around literacy that we might be seeing?
I would definitely say so. When the priority of the school is wrong, putting emphasis on political activism, some of the political issues rather than the basics of literacy, numeracy, and science, that is where our students are heading. And if teachers are teaching too much of these radical issues and subjects, the mind of our students is really distracted, and it will also lead them to a different direction. They will lose interest and lose concentration in their studies, but concentrate on things that is outside school, and therefore there are students rather go to protest climate change or pro-Palestinian protest during school hours rather than stay at school to learn.
Jasmine, what sort of response have you had from government in Victoria? Has there been an approach to the Premier, Jacinta Allen, or other ministers, members? What sort of response have you had when you've been coming across them in your lobbying role?
That's a very good question. So I've just met with the Chief of Staff of the Minister for Education, Ben Carroll, and Ben Caro is also our Deputy Premier. So I met with his Chief of Staff last year, and we did discuss respectful relationship, sexuality education. That is a main concern. And I did put out my argument to say that there is a huge decline in academic performance among Victorian students is because priority has been put on those radical programs rather than the basics of education. And the Chief of Staff say, no, I don't agree, is because I see that Victoria is doing the best in NAPLAN throughout our country. So, of course, they will disagree with me, but from what I heard from different friends who are teaching at different schools and also parents as well, our kids are definitely struggling in the school and not doing well in their reading, their writing, their science and different subjects.
Now, you're a woman of action, clearly, because you're beginning to coordinate here a community response, Jasmine, from the Australian Christian Lobby. You're calling this Operation Change Community Education Program. There's a live stream that's happening tomorrow night, and for Victorian listeners, there's some places of gathering. How do you describe what's going on? What is your plan here? What is this community response?
So I have launched this community education campaign. The main purpose is to raise awareness among the community. So we are not only speaking to Christians, we want to get the message to the non-Christian community as well. It's because as far as I know, according to the poll that we have just done, there are a lot of parents out there in the community still not aware of programs such as respectful relationship and sexuality education. So what we want to do is to help parents to be informed of what their children have been taught at school. And hopefully in the next 3 years, up until 2026 state election, they will be informed enough to make the right decision when it comes to voting time in the election time.
Well, there is a live stream. The plan is for tomorrow evening, and for Victorian residents, as I understand it, there's no venues and times on the ACL website. And I know you're encouraging listeners in Victoria to call the Australian Christian Lobby National Office and find out where those gathering points are. But the website for the Australian Christian Lobby is acl.org.au. acl.org.au. Jasmine Yuen is the Australian Christian Lobby Victorian State Director, and a significant launch into a community awareness response called Operation Change Community Education Campaign. Thank you so much for joining us, Jasmine. Thank you for sharing these thoughts with listeners today on 2020.
Thank you, Neil.
Thanks for taking time to listen to this audio on demand from Vision Christian Media. To find out more about us, go to vision.org.au.